Live from Jefferson City, it's the This Week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update with Scott Faughn.
Welcome into our This Week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update. We are joined by Representative John Voss from Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Representative, thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
All right, so tell folks, obviously the mortal enemy of Butler Countyans is Cape Girardeau County. We like to make fun of you. We like to make fun of Mark Welker especially. Is Welker your constituent?
He is. I'm very happy to be able to represent Mark.
Maybe you could gerrymander that next time and just like lube him out of the equation there.
I don't know if I want to do that. Mark's a great guy. I've known Mark for a long time.
He's the Cape County prosecutor and a hell of an old boy. All right, so tell me about the district. When you come down 55, when are you in your district? When are you out?
Yep, so my district starts on the north at LaSalle Avenue. It's one of the newer interchanges there on Interstate 55, and it is completely east of the interstate. So my district runs from Interstate 55 to the river, from west to east, and then LaSalle Avenue south, basically to the Scott County line.
So you've got that's just city of Cape, right?
There's a little bit of the city that's on the west side of 55 that Representative Barry Hovis now has
Yeah,
after
but your
redistricting.
district is all the
it's
city?
all the city, yeah, predominantly the city.
Really,
of Cape.
it's amazing. Since I've been old enough to drive, Cape and Jackson have totally grown together.
We have.
There used to be a couple spots, maybe a
Right.
quarter mile where there was still a field or something.
Right.
But it's completely
It's developed, and
yeah.
it's just one big area now.
And the rivalry.
Still exists, yeah.
Yes.
We're always hopeful that Cape will win, but Jackson seems to have the upper hand here recently. They're a bigger school district, so they have more children.
Notre Dame pluck a lot of the Cape folks from that would, if left for their own devices, would be in the Cape School District, but they go to Notre Dame.
That's correct.
Yeah.
My three boys actually went to Notre Dame. I'm a Central graduate, a proud Tiger, but our three boys went to Notre Dame High School.
Where'd Limbaugh go?
Central, yeah.
Oh well,
So.
not. I mean, you can't win them all, right? I mean, but so it is Cape Girardeau is the biggest city in southeast Missouri. It's a media market. I grew up watching Mike Shane and Don McNeely. Mike Shane was the news guy. Don McNeely was the weather guy.
Mike was my neighbor, actually lived across the street from me.
No kidding.
He did, yes.
That's awesome.
And then my brother had a very fruitful career with KFES 12 and knew Don and Mike and Bob Reeves.
What did he do?
He was in a control room for a while, but he just retired as the director of creative services and did a lot of their advertising for him.
It was amazing to me. I knew the world was changing when Randy Ray went from the sports to selling television.
That's right.
time.
That's right. And then Wendy, his daughter, lived on
Yeah.
the same street as me as well. Right.
Now
So
she
small.
got on camera, right?
She did for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And then she's out of that business now and has her own small business.
So who's the anchor now? Is it Jeff?
Jeff and
And then there's a Brian. Brian Allworth
Kathy.
was the number 2.
right. Jeff
Is
and
he the
Kathy
no-
do all the
Okay.
anchoring at this point now. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the House. What a night on election night. I know you're a caucus guy. I know you raise a lot of money for the caucus, but I got to tell you, I would almost say I wouldn't believe it if you thought on election night you were going to bring back all 111 seats with the presidential year, usually
Right.
better for Democrats.
Yep.
Amendment 3, which I think everybody thought, maybe right up until the end, was a good Democrat turnout model, and then just the Trump in the suburbs.
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't have thought.
The odds
you
were
bring
not
it
for
back.
us to bring back
Not at
111
all.
seats. Not at all. And I'm very grateful for the hard work that members of the caucus put in, and which HRCC did as well. And I think Hannah and her team did an amazing job.
Yeah.
And Patterson did a nice job of getting the right people in the right places to make sure that came
He
to
gets
fruition.
the blame, he gets the credit, right?
He does. That's what comes with leadership, right?
Yep.
So you got to have broad shoulders, and I'm a John fan. I'm glad that he's there, and really thankful and respectful for what he did.
John Patterson to me is the guy who's calm in a hectic situation. I mean, John Deal reminded me, he had that calm. Todd Richardson had that kind of calm. Really, Ron Richards, Steve Tilley. At the end of session, the House is a very hectic place.
It can be.
You have 163 people all wanting their thing done.
Yep.
You have they're expecting leadership to go get the Senate to do, which
Yeah.
is proven impossible in some situations. But it's a hectic situation. I mean, there is a Mark Richardson, my first boss, another fellow Southeast Missourian. He always said there's a life to the House that's fun. There's an energy to the House that is very fun, and I found that to be true in our work there, and as I observe it. Patterson is the guy in that hectic energy, in that crazy thing. He does have that calm presence that I think a leader needs to have to run that cool engine.
And I think part of that probably stems from his profession, right?
Sure.
And so to be a doctor and a surgeon specifically, I think requires just competence and focus and complete attention to detail, and that's where I think he's going to.
He reminds me of Wayne Wallingford a little bit.
He does. You know,
guy
I
that's
succeeded
always
Wayne,
calm.
and I have
Yeah.
a ton of respect for Wayne as well. He's a great veteran, a great servant to our state and our nation. I'm very grateful for Wayne's service.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Southeast Missouri politics. I know a lot of folks encouraged you to run for state senate in the seat that Holly Rader left when she ran for lieutenant governor. I know that had to be tempting. You had the population center. You chose to support Representative Berger. Walk me through. You just don't see in politics that often somebody else allow someone else to move forward like that. That statesmanship is something that you don't really often see.
Yeah, thank you. You know, there were a couple things that really drove my and my wife's decision about that choice. One is I have the utmost respect for Senator-elect Berger.
Yeah.
He's been a great public servant in Scott County. He served many years on the commission there as presiding commissioner. Jamie's a prolific fundraiser as well.
Mm-hmm.
I also had some personal family things that I needed to attend to
Sure.
and just didn't lend itself to being on the campaign trail. I always put my family first in my career and my life, and that's always served me very, very well, and I will always make that choice. And so I put my family first. And nothing to do with Janice and I, but one of our sons had some needs, and I just wanted to make sure I was available for him. And I think I can be just as effective supporting Senator-elect Berger in the House as well, and hopefully continue to lead the state and use my skills in a finance or a budget role. And I think we'll be very, very successful in that endeavor.
Lots of folks mention you as the top candidate to be the new vice chair of budget. Is that something you're kicking around interested in?
I am very interested in that, but I also understand that it's a team-based effort, and if my talents and skills are needed in another way to help the team succeed, then I'm open to that, but I think my skill set would lend itself to be a very effective vice chairman.
The last budget chair that had any Southeast Missouri tie, I'm trying to think back.
May have been Marvin Proffer back when the Democrats were in charge. You know, he
Might
was
have
from
been.
the Jackson area, and he served as the chair of that committee for many
Did
years.
he want to work for SEMO?
I don't know that. He may have. I just don't know. He had Eastern
Carl-
Industries, I thought. had
Carl
did some,
Bearden
okay.
is from Wayne County,
Okay.
but he represented St. Charles County
Got
in the legislature. But he's a Wayne County boy.
Okay.
That's about as close as we've had. I mean, and I'll say this again. Southeast Missouri votes Republican. Sends total red delegation.
Yep.
Now we're the congressional district that turns out the most Republican margins. And it does feel like that state party just wipes its ass with us. I mean, it just feels like that party, no matter how loyal we are to it, they just don't give a damn about Southeast Missouri.
Yeah, you know, the other elected members of the General Assembly and I have been very intentional about building relationships together so that we can leverage our strength as a region perhaps better than it has been in the past.
I think that's important. Bill Foster was senator. He had a Boot Hill Mafia. And it got a lot of attention, but I think they actually did things with that attention. I think that was a successful move, and I do think I watched Northwest Missouri. To me, if you want the template for how to do this, Northwest Missouri knows how to do it. That leads into our sponsor, United Fiber, up in the great Northwest. As Senator Hageman would say, some of the best rural broadband. The money you would appropriate, to me, there's another template. When you appropriate rural broadband money, I would take them to Savannah and say, just do it like they do it. They do it right. And then obviously the Courtyard by Marriott, we're always grateful for their sponsorship of the show. But the Northwest folks, they stick together. Mm-hmm. Now they've got a new younger member, but for the most part, that group is a cohesive group that sticks together and is very successful. They get more than they should out of the state. But I think it's that cohesion.
It is, and like I said, you know, we're trying to be very intentional about our relationships and what our shared priorities are so that we can all be one strong voice. I don't know that we've been splintered before, but we're being very intentional about coming together and being one strong voice.
You know, to me, there's always been a cape. No matter where you go in the state, the most successful town in a region has some jealousy. I mean, you look at the state of Missouri. Right. We all dog St. Louis, and part of it is we're jealous of the things St. Louis has. We don't like to admit it. There's an element of that.
There is.
I remember when they had the congressional seat that was open, which has been, my God, that's been a dozen years ago.
Yep.
It really helped Jason Smith that he was not from Cape. And it was the first real tangible realization of that. I do think we like to joke about it, but I do think in order to achieve for Southeast Missouri what Northwest Missouri has achieved, I do think there's going to have to be lighthearted jokes, and we have to put aside those real things and pick some priorities, and those priorities may be in Cape. But I think coming together with a list of demands for the state and sticking to them, I think we're missing the boat in Southeast Missouri because we don't have more of that.
Yeah, what's good for Perryville is good for Sykeston, it's good for Bluff, it's good for Cape, for Dexter. You just start filling in the cities. What's good for the region is going to lift all of our communities up.
And even in this budget share thing, I mean, to me, if you're Hardy Billington, it's better for you to have a Southeast Missourian. And I don't think you could make that play all the time, but it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
And Southwest Missouri kind of hogged that for a while.
They have.
And I respect to them for making that move, but I do think you share that a little. And I don't think anybody in Southwest Missouri is staying up at night worrying about Southeast Missouri.
No, but we do have talent across the entire state, not just financially in Southwest Missouri. And I'm happy for their success, but I also think that we need to open that up for other members to be able to contribute and use their full potential.
All right, let's talk. We're talking leadership races. Look, I had somebody send me, I was actually doing a radio show, and I saw Justin Sparks had announced he's going to run for speaker. He announced it, I guess, before Thanksgiving. The process you've set up, you have a speaker designee. I think reasonable people could argue whether that's a good idea or not. I think it's odd to argue after the success you've had on election night, but okay. I think that's something you could argue when you have that designee race, how that works. He had said he had a political earthquake. I have not seen a political earthquake except with radio hosts and some social media people.
Right.
I did a show the other day. I told my buddy Alex Bryant down in Springfield, I'm like, well, look, the truth is, if you think Justin Sparks is going to be speaker, you're going to look like Anderson Cooper on election night. Just because nobody Anderson Cooper knew voted for Trump or even consider it.
Right.
But Donald Trump won in a landslide. And I was like, that landslide's going to pale in comparison to the landslide that John Patterson wins. And don't get yourself into the situation where you're, frankly, out of touch. I guess, and look, he said he had a political earthquake. I think it's a political earthquake. If Justin Sparks wins, you got to hand to the guy. Political earthquake. Amazing thing. Right. Wonderful feat of politics. But just running, I guess I haven't heard but about 3 or 4 people say they're even considering voting for him. Am I just not talking to the right people?
No, that I think that's accurate. Justin may bring up some valid points, but
Sure.
I think his timing is ill-advised. If he really wanted to be speaker, then he should have done something a year or so ago. And if his lightning rod issue is Amendment 3, then he had every opportunity to try and lead our caucus, to try and do something to support the defeat of that in the state, and I didn't see that. He may have done something, but I'm not sure that I'm aware of that.
Well, it's so funny to me. I've heard so many people talk about, well, we should have passed something in the legislature on Amendment 3. What about going and talking to your friends and neighbors?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Amendment 3 passed in his district overwhelmingly, right? I mean, that's where the folks that vote Republican and voted for Amendment 3 were. It was Chesterfield. It was St. Louis County.
It was.
What neighbors were you talking? I mean, and again, I maybe he was, right? I don't know for sure. I do think, though, good run for speaker. To me, saying I want to run for speaker, fine, probably ill-advised, but whatever. But don't call your colleagues corrupt.
I agree.
And don't attack your colleagues because they're not voting for you. That's the part where I do think, honestly, people start to not just roll their eyes. I mean, if you say, I'm going to run for speaker at the 11th hour, it's probably an eye roll. Okay, run for speaker, man. Right. Again, that's not an earthquake. That's your decision. You're a member.
It is.
If you can get nominated and seconded, run.
Perfect.
Shit, help yourself. Where I do think, though, it's a little bit – I do think I've watched members – be like, he wants to run, that's fine, who cares? But it's like you're out calling people corrupt for things that I don't believe pass any measure of corruption. I do think raising money to help reelect, and the funny part is you guys took the money that you raised And you spent it in St. Louis County
did.
to re-elect Phil Olerking, to re-elect Ben Keithley, his
Brad Christ.
neighboring seats.
Yep.
If I'm Phil Olerking, I'm like, dude, I'm pretty happy with HRCC.
Bill
and how this
Allen,
worked.
again,
Yeah.
some of these swing areas that we really needed
It's
to
not
keep
like you took that money to Cape and gave it to Barry Hovis' campaign.
No, we did not. And I think that it's important that we think about things statewide, not just our own perspective, our own district, right? And so, as you mentioned earlier, the 8th Congressional is pretty solidly red, right? And so we're probably going to export finances out of our district to help other swing areas to continue to keep the majority, if not the supermajority, in the state. And when you talk to donors and share that perspective with them, they get it. They get it, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think, look, if you don't want to raise money for the caucus, well, it's your prerogative,
It's your
too.
choice.
But if you do, to me, I think, going back to Newt Gingrich, there's a respect and an admiration for folks amongst their colleagues that are fighting to keep all their colleagues in office. Yeah. They're fighting. I mean, you were handed down a tremendous legacy from Dave Schwab and Mary Caston,
That's right.
who I don't think got to serve in the majority. Right. But by God, they were the ones out pushing and helping, and you had Cape, and then you had Jackson, and then you had Poplar Bluff.
That's right.
And then you went up and you got Fredericktown and Jim
Exactly.
Graham, and then you went and got Rolla and the Mays. And before long, I mean, you were handed this legacy of HRCC, and unfortunately in life, and if you want fair, go talk to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Life's not fair, right? But the truth is, the way you take that baton that was handed to you by Wayne Wallingford, that was handed to him, going back, frankly, to Mary Caston and Dave Schwab, only way you hand that forward is to raise money.
That's right.
And I get it. It sucks. I don't think. Trust me, a big part of my job is sales.
Yep.
Sometimes it's hard.
It is hard.
But it's the grown-up part of keeping that supermajority. And if you don't do that, then I'm not sure you can say that you're keeping that tradition that Mary Caston handed to you. I don't say you're not really paying it forward.
Exactly. This is a team-based sport, and people need to remember this is about the team. It's not about me as an individual rep or as individual senator, but it's about what we can achieve working together as a caucus. Will we get everything that we want individually? In an ideal world, maybe, but typically you're going to have to help somebody else advance their policy objective for the good of the party, and that's what this is all about.
I think abortion, I think the part of the thing the pro-life cause has done is they've got so focused on hating each other and calling each other names and all these things. I think what Mike Kehoe did, I think the reason that race tightened was what Mike Kehoe did. He raised money. Mike Kehoe, he's not from St. Charles County.
Right.
He doesn't get on the internet and whine. He works and he wins.
Yep.
He works and he wins. And it doesn't involve a lot of social media whining and throwing a fit.
No.
It doesn't involve him getting on the radio and calling people in the fight with him and turning on them. It involves working and winning,
shaking hands and building relationships,
and raising money.
Right.
I mean, the money
will come after the relationships there.
Exactly. He took his relationships because he did not have much of a general election. Right. Donald Trump was going to ensure that he didn't spend much of it. He raised money to beat Amendment 3. 2 years from now, if you're going to beat amendment, if you're going to have a new amendment, it's going to take working and winning and not the whining. Right. And I guess I just think it's a fundamental problem in the pro-life cause. The obsession with a legislative parliamentary trick, as opposed to going and convincing people the pro-life cause is the right one for this state. I became pro-life not because somebody was attacking somebody or calling somebody names and all. I became pro-life because of a positive message that it's good for the state, it's good for families, it's good for women and children. It's a positive. The pro-life cause doesn't have to be hateful.
Right.
It can. Sam Lee's a very good man. He gives a positive view of being pro-life. It is not a shame and hate and attack. It is, let me tell you why I'm pro-life. And he does it with a smile on his face. My mom is one of the greatest church recruiters you'll ever see. She makes a friend, and before you know it, that friend's sitting in the pew by her. Yeah. And I really think the pro-life movement could learn a lot from the religious community, especially the growing churches that are bringing in followers. Because obviously you need about 6% flip,
right?
And I think you get that 6% not by telling them they're assholes. I think you might be better to get that with a little honey instead of vinegar.
I said this a lot on the campaign trail, but we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I think God wants to use them in that proportion. And if we'll ask insightful questions and listen to what people are telling us, the answer is obvious.
I just think, I believe, if I had to guess, you're going to come together as a party and you're going to put something on the ballot for folks to vote on. Now, do you go hardcore back to what it was? Do you go a middle of the road approach? I don't know. I would love to see you do the middle of the road but pass easier. I think the last couple of days of the election, the pro-choice folks were wishing they might have went a little more middle of the road because it was getting tight.
Yep.
I think that's where the public is.
Yep.
Now, go convince the public to move it one way or the other. Right. That's your right in America. But I do think you're going to put something on the ballot.
I agree. I don't know what that will be. But,
yeah.
All the pre-filed legislation, it's all in there, right? There's something in there.
And if Governor Kehoe continues what he did in that campaign, I think that there's a good chance the pro-life side wins that argument. If he stays involved, that Cass Anderson, that work was working.
It was.
What the Vitae folks say, he united most of the pro-life movement behind something.
Mm-hmm.
You keep doing that. That's what, to me, when I saw those things, I'm like, okay, this was changing. I was always negative about it. Right. I was like, pro-life people, the only thing they agree about is the only thing they hate more than abortion is other pro-lifers. And then Kehoe had this community to come together that I thought it's just the way I say he win his primary. And I think I'm optimistic that you could win a victory, but I think you've got to keep him involved. Now, not in the next 5 months,
right,
but after session,
yep.
I do think you've got to keep him involved. He's got to be at the front of this in raising money, in organizing these coalitions. And if he's not, I don't like the chances of if you just take some of the existing pro-life groups that don't even get along with each other. I do believe the pro-choice cause will come and defend their amendment.
They will.
As it's their right to do.
And they were very well funded this time.
Yes.
Better funded than the pro-life community, right? And so we've got to come together.
7-8 to 1,
yeah,
10 to
exactly.
1. Yeah.
And so we've got to be focused on what our legislative policy will be that we want to ask voters to consider, and then put some money behind it to make sure the message gets out. And we're having those conversations about, is this really where we want the future of Missouri to go?
So, give me a prediction here. My assumption is Representative Sparks he's said a lot. He's attacked John Patterson for his votes a little bit personally. He's attacked, you're somebody that you spent your fall raising money for HRCC to bring back Bill Allen.
Right.
I would say if I were you, I would consider it an attack on you, somebody that has actually put into the till. Jeff Myers. Go down the list of
right.
people that have sacrificed to bring back folks. If I'm Jeff Myers, my leadership opponent could have lost if he didn't have money, and he put money in.
That's right.
Probably in some ways against his own interest.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Jeff Myers, I'm like, what are you attacking me for, dude? I'm here helping. I think it's well been discussed at your caucus. Jim Murphy laid the law down. He I guess I should say, he made his Irish opinion known.
He was very clear.
And a few others. I guess I just don't see this as more than a 3 or 4 or 5, half a dozen member protest vote. Is that where you see this ending?
I do. We all got our styles and our personalities and how we would do things, and I won't criticize Representative Sparks for what he's doing. Like I said, I think the timing is ill-advised, but I would take a different approach.
There's a dishonest element of attacking people for raising money for the caucus. I think, again, I don't think I think it's fine. To me, Speaker of the House is one of the greatest honors this state can bestow on someone. If you have to run as the designee, and then you have to run again, and you run again, well, you know what? It is such an honor to give a Missourian. Right. I don't feel sorry for you. I bet you if John Patterson doesn't want to do it, 20 other people are happy to step up and,
sure.
and run however many times it takes to get there. So I don't feel sorry for Patterson in that. I do think it's a little I do think there's a dishonest element of saying that raising money for your caucus is somehow bad, or that that's not part of something that you should respect your colleagues and their commitment and giving up time with their family
right.
and giving up their own resources that could further their personal careers. Putting that in as a common effort, I think that's a little disingenuous to me.
And I think Representative Sparks has focused a lot on the treasure part of the time, talents, and treasure, right?
Yep.
And I personally can say that Speaker-elect Patterson has been to my district. He has helped Representative Hovis and myself. He's been a presence in Southeast Missouri, and I've not seen that out of Representative Sparks.
Let me ask you, has Representative Sparks met with you?
He has not.
There's only 111 of you.
110.
Right? 110.
Plus him.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I think I would. That's interesting. I think I might be a little less on the internet and a little more on that on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, generally I've found when people run for leadership, they go sit on your couch and ask for your vote, right?
Yep.
And that's it's a tradition. I think is good. I think the membership requiring that of you coming to my house
Yep.
and asking me for my vote.
Yep.
I think that's something you all should keep doing. Again, it's a huge state, but it's a huge honor to lead the Missouri House of Representatives. And I think if you don't think it's worth it to you, cool. But I don't think that's telling that you might not be the person for the job.
Right.
You know, I also, my heart goes out a little bit to some of these freshmen. I mean, think about it. You work. Most of these races are primary races. I mean, you might have had a general, but I mean, did you? I mean, just
30 points. I won by 30 points.
Exactly. But if you're out working and you work real hard, and it is hard, and one of my pet peeves is media people that kind of dog on people that get elected. It's very hard to get elected.
It is.
Very few media people get elected because it's hard. You go do that. You're like excited to go be part of a team and do conservative things, and right out of the gate you get pushed into this situation where you have a lot of your loud folks on Facebook giving you grief. Now, you know John Patterson. You've got to see the game. But imagine yourself back when you first got elected. I mean, you're an accomplished man.
Yep.
But this is a different world for most people.
It is.
My heart goes out to a freshman that's getting banged on by people on Facebook or some group. And everybody they're serving is like, oh, it's just noise. But I bet it's very hard for you to know that.
These are consequential decisions that freshmen are being asked to make in their first week as a member of the General Assembly. Yeah, that's right. And it is.
It's a tough spot for them to be in.
It is a very tough spot to not have the privilege of having a year or two to get to know people as they're going through the business of being a majority floor leader or a member and speaking on the floor, or how they conduct themselves in committee. And it is a very difficult decision with limited information.
You know, I've seen some of the. I've seen they were playing this clip as I was about to go on the radio once, and it talked about being angry that a bill didn't get put on the calendar. And I'm like, well, okay, you can't be mad at the floor leader for that. He can only do what's on the calendar, right? But if you're a freshman, do you catch that? Does it sound good? Oh, he didn't put my bill on the calendar. Well, John Patterson never put a bill on the calendar in his life.
Right.
I mean, he hasn't had the job.
Right.
But if you're a freshman, that's probably not the kind of stuff you would catch, right? You would catch that because you've
I've got a couple years of experience there, right?
But my heart goes out to a freshman member and the spot they're put in. It's not easy.
There's a lot to take in. You know, certainly drinking from a fire hose, and the freshmen are on their 2-week tour right now, and they had orientation, and there's just a lot of information to take in about what is entailed in the role of being a representative or a senator, and how the whole process works. And then you get into the other side of the Capitol and how that body may behave or not behave, and there's just a lot to take in. As I go to a lot of civic groups and talk to them, you know, I use this analogy of there are almost 200 elected officials in the General Assembly, and each one of them is going to have at least one support person. So you're at 400 people that you need to get to know pretty quickly. And then you start throwing in members of the executive branch, right? So whether those are departments. Yeah, so on budget committee, it's all their budget people and their assistant people and all the people that come in there.
Well, just imagine revenue. Probably most of your constituents. You got to go over there and get to know the folks.
Yeah, and then you start throwing in the lobbying corps. So you're probably at 600 people that you really need to have some idea of who they are.
I never thought of it that way. That is,
who they represent, who their interests are with, and what their objectives are. And to be able to navigate that without falling in a trap once in a while is a daunting task. Well, then you get into, we're going to vote on rules the first couple of days, right? And we got this kerfluffle going on with the speaker-elect race, and there's just a lot of information to take in. At the same time, you may be winding down a job that you're in, or taking care of business back home that you got to get ready for. You can come up here for 5 solid months.
Christmas. So,
and then the holidays, right? And so there's just a lot of information coming at these freshmen right now, and it can be overwhelming.
Tell me, as far as the House rules, I've always believed there's really only one House rule, 82 votes. Yep. You could pretty much do whatever you want with 82 votes. I don't see the House rules as.
I don't view them as limiting.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've got the
you
right,
got to have some kind of procedure, but
you do. But if you have the right relationships and the right intent, I think you can get a lot done.
and if you have 82 votes,
Right.
and you have 82 determined votes to have,
And that's
I've
where those
never.
relationships come in,
Yeah.
right? So
I'm
the
with you.
the vote is really the culmination of the work that you've done underground, right? So planting the seed, watering it, making sure it has the right fertilizer. You'll reap the fruits of those efforts, but it's not going to be immediate. It's not instantaneous.
I also think I thought that Speaker Plucker had an idea this last year. I've watched the House send thousands of bills to the Senate, and it's talk about drinking from a fire hydrant. They don't even read them or care. Nobody even. Then they have. I mean, frankly, the volume of legislation you send across that rotunda, the Senate could ignore you and just pluck something they like, because you gave them all. If you only send them a few bills, there's a lot better chance to horse trade. I'm not sure passing more bills. I mean, the real problem is not the House rules. If you're talking about passing legislation, the real problem is the Missouri Senate and the personality backlog. Nothing you do in the House rules is going to affect that personality backlog. Now, I do think passing fewer bills would give you more leverage when you have to have that ultimate negotiation between the chambers. Having so many bills, I mean, they just take up in TAFP bills that they like and not have to give you anything,
Right.
As far as your caucus priorities. If you pass some legislation and the Senate, it sits there, and then the last week of session, the Senate goes, we don't have to give him anything. We'll just take Representative Voss as one of his 18 bills, and
We'll file it.
I'm not sure. Yeah, well, most of them, that's what happens.
Yep.
But if they decide they want one, you've already lost your leverage. You've let it out of your chamber. They
Yep.
can, if they can just take it and do it. I'm not sure anything in the House rules. The real problem, I think most House members feel, is they want to see their legislation passed. And I think these omnibus bills are terrible ways to do public policy. You could never convince me that's a good way to do things. But if there's only going to be 7 bills passed, they're going to be omnibus bills.
They will.
That's just the way it is.
It will be.
I think, and the only way to change that is to have the Senate function more and do some of the more housekeeping, general legislative bills. But nothing in the House rules is going to change the way the Missouri Senate does things.
No. And I think we're all optimistic at the start of every session, certainly after election, that the Senate will be different. Right?
New governor.
Exactly. So this is an opportunity for us to rebase, to reset things, and to move forward together. I'm optimistic, maybe naively, but I'm hoping that we can function a little better than we have in the past, and do some of that horse trading perhaps, and see where we land.
It'll be interesting. I think you have a speaker and a pro tem who have a very mutual respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a governor that respects both of them, and I assume that is returned. I'm interested to see. I do, and this is not fair to either man, probably less to Caleb if you want the truth. I think with Caleb and Bill being gone, and Denny,
Yep.
all the players from that leadership race 6 years ago are now
We're
gone.
finally out.
And Nick Shore is somebody you served with Nick, right?
No, I've not served
just-
with Nick. Yeah,
okay.
I'm not.
If Nick's going to be the leader of the conservative freedom, complaining,
Whatever
whatever,
name,
you
yeah.
want to call him, yeah. My gut is that Nick Shore, I mean, you go in his office, he likes to pass legislation. He's a legislator. He's also a talker. But to me, I think senators are like, say what you want on Facebook. I don't care. Don't come in the chamber. If you come after my legislation, I'm going to come after yours.
Sure.
Just law of the jungle.
It is.
I don't think anybody cares about all the radio or the Facebooking and all that. I think that's just noise. And I don't think Sandy Crawford cares what you say about her on Facebook at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think she cares if you're not being a legislative partner.
Right.
And to me, those are the interesting things that I think will. I think Nick is a legislator, and I think Nick Shore could be governor of the state of Missouri one day. But I think whatever his career goes to do, I think will be defined by the next 6 months. It'll be very interesting to watch Nick. I think he's the most interesting person in the legislature, starting in January, is Nick, and how he goes about leading his faction or being in a faction or not or whatever he does.
Right.
I think Nick is the most interesting person to watch.
He has a lot of talent, that's for sure.
Oh,
And,
100%.
I'm happy he's on our team, right?
He's on your team sometimes.
He is,
Yeah.
but I'd rather have him on our team than being across the aisle from him.
I think that's right, and I think the guy has the talent to be governor one day. But I think it'll be interesting. I think if he is governor, it'll track back. And here's the fun thing about politics, like sports. whatever his moves are. I don't know what the right ones are. I mean, I don't know. That's what we're going to see. The future goes. But speaking of, so Kelton still has an illegal in gamble. He's got the. Is your sports book the first legal one, or is it still illegal?
I'm making that transition as we speak.
He's transitioning. Kelton. I knew once he shaved that beard, the transition could be coming. So we have a bowl game. Nashville, not too far from you.
That's right.
What's Nashville from Cape?
About 4 hours.
4?
3.5, depending on how fast you drive.
Do you go through Wycliffe?
You can, yep.
See, that Wycliffe bridge, those two bridges, I get the willies on bridges. And Wycliffe, that is the scariest two bridges. I to this day, nothing scares me more than driving over them damn bridges at Wycliffe.
Well, and that paper mill certainly gives off an odor as well. That
stinks.
Yeah.
But you have no room. Like, it is a very narrow move.
White knuckle bridge, yeah.
So 3.5. Yeah, it was about 4.5 from Poplar Bluff to get to Nashville. And then once you're there, the traffic in Nashville is another 4.5.
Awful.
You
it's
know,
awful.
But hopefully, we're going to fly in. So hopefully we can miss it. But we have a bowl game, University of Iowa, the Jason Clint Hawkeyes. Here's the interesting thing to me. There was going to be a different president at Missouri State until Jason Clint got involved. Now the president is there, little controversy. Clint is an Iowa fan. All the Missouri State people, of course, hate Mizzou. Right. Who do you pick for? Here's my question, Missouri State. I think his name's Boomer. Lincoln told me he's Boomer. So who are you for in this bowl game? You have Jason Clint's alma mater, tough call, and Mizzou, who you're always fighting with. Who do you support here? I think that's going to be the question, Kelton, we have to come back to and ask where this guy really is going to be, because I think it's a tough call for him. I love Jason Clint, but I'm going to have to go Mizzou. They're giving up 3.5 to the University of Iowa. Iowa's got a hell of a defense, not much of an offense. Kelton, I'm going to beat you to the punch. Truman, I'm going to take you and give the points to the University of Iowa. Where you at, Kelton?
I'm giving him the points even without Burden.
Yeah, no Luther Burden. Kelton's a homer. He's a suck-up. He always picks Mizzou to win, no matter, even if they're. He picked Mizzou to win at Bama, I think. He's just a homer. I mean, he's really the worst bookie in the hit. There's no bookie worse than Kelton at Mizzou. Now, other games, yes, he's good. But the Mizzou games, he's a total homer. He would literally be out on the streets if he was running a book. All right, Mizzou, Iowa, who you picking?
I'm picking Mizzou.
I actually don't always pick Mizzou, but I'm going to pick Mizzou here. I just think that Choi, I mean, what he has done at that college, my God, it should be studied. You took a college that literally no one could stand. I mean, they were just elitist, and they were elitist with no reason to be elitist. Right. And he has turned that place into a welcoming,
respected.
I just don't know that people, when you're living it, I don't think you can respect it enough. But 10 years from now, people look back on this as the golden era of Mizzou.
I agree.
And all the credit goes to him, to Dusty, to the curators. They have just they've turned the turnarounds happened, and I just thought, well, this guy will be a guy that comes in and cleans up the mess, and sets a good foundation for maybe somebody else to. He doesn't only clean up the mess; he's taken the thing higher,
elevated it.
It is. There should be a statue when he's done of Moon Choi at that college, and he will have earned every ounce of bronze in it.
We're very fortunate to have him in his leadership.
I'm telling you, it's just undeniable. Well, I didn't go to Mizzou; I went to SEMO, but. You call a spade a spade. You have to. It is what it is. The guy is a phenomenal leader, and that credit goes to the curators, goes to the faculty, it goes to the coaches. Because I mean, whether the faculty likes to admit it or not, people are very excited about beating Kansas. It's a big deal. It's a shot in the arm. It's a boost. So, Representative, thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having
me.
Very
much appreciate it. Have a safe trip back to Cape Girardeau. Kelton, we'll be back with the new president of the Missouri Association of Counties later today, and Sunday. This week in Missouri Politics, Eric Schmidt. Tomorrow, Kelton at 11, Greg Keller, the silver-tongued devil of Ladue. We got to come up with a better name for Keller. Something that rhymes with Ladue.
That's going to be hard.
We're not going to say the liar from Ladue, but some people on Twitter might. But an absolute, we'll have a great amount of fun talking with Greg, and we'll be back. And then Sunday, don't forget to join us for This Week in Missouri Politics. Senator Eric Schmidt, our final show of the year. He's been our final show of the year for 10 years now. We'll close out the year with he's had several titles. He's
Yes.
came all the way back around. He started the show as senator. He went on treasurer. Now he's
AG,
back to senator.
senator.
Just a little different type of senator. Thank you all. We'll see you after a while.